A Certain Magical Index is truly a Christian anime. If you want proof, just look at these nuns. No, but seriously, I'm somewhat surprised hardcore fundamentalist Christians who believe the Earth is 3,000 years old haven't tried to burn every copy of Index in existence, due to how it portrays some Christians as genocidal wizards. To be honest, I'm exaggerating a bit. I want to explore how Index portrays religion and believers as a whole. Is Index a brutal attack on the concept of religion, or does it present a more nuanced and fair view, emphasizing both the positive and negative connotations of its real-world applications? Now I know, religion is a highly sensitive subject, so watch this video with an open mind, or I might rustle your jimmies. Religious representation in Japanese weeb media is pretty common, with Christianity often presented as having the power of both God and anime on your side, as the followers of Christ wage a supernatural battle against the forces of evil. This is the kind of thing I wanted to learn at school. Or it does the opposite, portraying Christianity or a fictional religion, clearly inspired by it, as a cult for some nefarious evil plan. Question is, which category does Index fall into? I find it hard to generalize a series into one of these categories, as the answer isn't black or white. The central setting of Index is Academy City, the home of all things science, sealed off from the outside world, and the protagonists being atheists, despite Toma, the main character, believing in heaven? Whatever. While you may think Academy City is a haven for r/I am very smart users who wear fedoras and have neckbeards longer than mine, ironically the students which reside in the city are only there in the first place to develop psychic powers, due to a cult which the leader of Academy City, Aleister Crowley, established. Now, whether you class Flamer as a real religion or not is up to you. Still, I find it ironic the city, which is inherently opposed to religion, was pretty much formed by one. Also, see this video for a proper explanation about it. Aleister himself could also be classed as an edgelord atheist who hated Christianity and did the hipster thing we all tried to do at school one time, where we tried to emulate Jesus by forming our own silly religions, which were adopted by no one. Or maybe that was just me. And yet Aleister was the one who was somewhat successful. Funny, he also calls himself the Beast 666, which is basically the devil from Revelations, the final book of New Testament, and not the Index version, which is the real version. In Academy City, religions aren't worshipped, but rather studied and analysed pragmatically by students who wish to venture into that field. So, in my opinion, it's quite a realistic approach to how a city of pure science, which deals with facts and logic, would approach the concept of faith. From all this information, you'd think the author Kamachi Kazuma is projecting his beliefs into the story, that there is a conspiracy theory that Toma is controlled by Aleister, aka the devil, shattering the illusions of those who believe in God to convert them to his side in order to destroy religion for good. Especially when Aleister absolutely hates the concept of God or gods, and wishes to destroy the magic side, which of course includes the key religions of the world. Truly, a Certain Magical Index is trying to indoctrinate our youth into apostasy and adopt a religion of worshipping fictional women. If you couldn't tell, I'm being sarcastic. I want to talk about the interesting relationship Toma has with religious themes, but first, let's move on to the Christians in Index, specifically the quote-unquote evil ones, who Toma loves to punch in the face. There are three main churches in Index: the Anglican Church, which are based in the UK, the Vatican Church, based in Vatican City, Rome, and the Russian Orthodox Church, which obviously is in Russia. Now, none of these churches are depicted as perfect by any stretch, mainly due to corrupt leadership. The Anglican Church is led by Laura Stewart, who pretends to be quite outgoing and goofy, which is nothing more than a facade of her true nature, where she is undoubtedly cruel and manipulative even to other members of the church and her own country. She purposefully lied to both Style and Kanzaki and convinced them to erase the memory of their dear friend Index every single year, forcing them to act as enemies towards her, despite the immense pain. Laura also stripped Index of her identity, treating her more like an object than an actual person. And if you've read the Index novels, you'll know that Laura is even worse inside. While the Catholics are initially led by Pope Motoi Reese, who seems, morally grey. I mean, he did order the assassination of a 15-year-old kid. But trust me, he is a saint compared to the real leader of the Roman Catholic Church and God's right seat, and that being Fiamma of the Right. Fiamma is somewhat of a megalomaniac who believes he's the second coming of Jesus, destined to save the world by recreating Noah's flood, or in the modern method of nuking the hell out of it, and from the ashes, then ruling as the prophet of his idealized society. Then you have the Russian Orthodox Church, whose patriarch is a young kid called Kranz, who is actually a decent person and a competent leader despite his age. But he was briefly usurped and imprisoned by some douche who wanted to ally with Fiamma to start World War III. So yeah, not exactly examples of good Samaritans. I don't think Kamachi is trying to suggest churches or Christianity are inherently evil, just that these organisations can use religion to control the masses for ulterior motives, or individuals using them as a means to obtain power and authority. And if you know anything about the history of the Roman Catholic Church, you know this was a reality for hundreds of years, with the Church prompting the monarchies of Europe to wage a holy crusade in the Middle East, or the concept of indulgences, which were a payment made to the church to decrease the amount of time waiting in purgatory to get to heaven sooner. So Kamachi presenting the one supreme authority churches used to have, even being able to influence numerous nation states, is actually accurate historically, and also presents a moral lesson that believes it represents good and the will of God, can be used as a means to control others and create a tyranny. Therefore, I see it more as a warning from Kamachi to not let history repeat itself, since the modern equivalents of these churches no longer have the power they used to have or what they do in Index. Although, we still have wars going on over which religious book is the truth, so looks like this message is still relevant today. While the churches in Index were corrupted by morally questionable individuals, they do not represent Christians in the series as a whole, as it's a common theme in both Index and the real world that even if a country or state is led by some evil dictator, that doesn't mean every single person in that country is also a dick. As yes, believe it or not, there are Christians in Index that actually embrace their faith to try and help others and bring about good. And the best example I can think of is none other than the big titty nun Ursula Aquinas, named after St. Thomas Aquinas, who wasn't a big titty nun. Ursula doesn't really have a bad bone in her body. Even when she was betrayed and hunted down by her fellow nuns, she forgave them. Classic example of turning the other cheek. And if we talk about spoilers from the light novel, Alistair, the 100-year-old man turned lolly I mentioned earlier, believes he cannot enter a church due to him committing as many sins as humanly possible. But Ursula says God hasn't given up on you. And this is so accurate to the Christian faith, as Jesus would forgive and pardon sinners of his time, such as tax collectors and prostitutes, if they followed his teachings and believed in God. Despite calling himself the B666, Ursula tends to Alistair's wounds. Now, Ursula herself isn't perfect. When England was attacked, she was fed up with being a support character and was like, I want to be useful for once. And so she was mind-controlled by something known as a divine mixture, where she ended up harming others, whether justified or not. But since she was under the influence of the divine mixture, I do not fully blame her. Nevertheless, Ursula is also trying to atone for her sins in this moment, while also pardoning Alistair in the name of the Lord. Even a member of the clergy like herself can sin, as no one is perfect in the Christian faith, like Jesus. Even though Jesus did get wrathful at one point, but whatever. Humans aren't perfect. We all make mistakes, and that's the case with Ursula here, which is perfectly captured in this moment. Even though her mistake was minor compared to Alistair's many acts of being a degen, it is her obligation to atone as well. Alistair previously condemned Christianity and still does in this moment, believing there is no salvation in the world, and yet found value in both the Bible and Ursula's words. "Do you think sins can ever be forgiven?" Alistair asked. Ursula answered, "People spend their entire lives searching for the answer to that question, and you must not think you will be able to find the answer if you seek it. Forgiveness can only be given by God, and his heart is truly unfathomable. All you can do is live your daily life the best you can, and be on your best behaviour, and wait for the time of judgment." By the way, if you want your sins forgiven for not subscribing to me, you can fix that right now, and I'll reward you with a special Toma video at 20k subs. While Alistair was not converted, I think he began to understand the importance of faith in this moment. Even if he believes he is too consumed by hatred and is vehemently opposed to religion, the message being that even if you disagree with the concept or teachings of religion, it is undeniable that its underlying messages are those to help those in need with nowhere else to turn. But Index doesn't necessarily suggest religion is a requirement to live a meaningful or moral life. Religion is just one avenue that works for some people. If we look at when Toma defeated Fuyama and stopped his evil plan to save humanity, which Fuyama believed was actually the right thing. While he did have good intentions, he was trying to achieve his goal via horrendous methods, but his utilitarian ideals and God complex misguided him. Fuyama was focused on the collective, saving the world entirely, as opposed to Toma, who also had a complex involving saving others, but the difference is, Toma focused on individuals, as Toma saves others on a case-by-case basis, solving the problem at hand when it arises. Fuyama, however, is focused on something too large in scale to feasibly handle due to his God complex. The collectivization of societies in history have often led to totalitarian regimes in the effort to try and create an idealized society or utopia. Once you start categorizing groups of people into good and bad, it can then escalate into viewing the bad group as enemies who must be eliminated, to bring about an ideal world. And that is why Fuyama's ideology is immoral as opposed to Toma's, and this can be linked back to religion in a sense of heaven and hell, with the righteous being rewarded and the sinners being punished, or the believer versus the infidel, where the infidels can be persecuted against for not subscribing to the popular ideology. Despite Fuyama attempting to wipe out most of humanity, he is shown compassion by Toma, who saves Fuyama's life by placing him into an escape pod in the Star of Bethlehem, which was about to crash into the Arctic Ocean. Don't ask why there is only one working escape pod, it's because of the plot. Toma acts so selflessly that he lets the guy who started World War III get away to safety, with no certainty that he will be able to survive himself. You may think, that's absolutely stupid. Toma is an absolute idiot for letting Fuyama live. I mean, Toma is a dumbass. He didn't know time zones were a thing. But I think Toma's actions have a symbolic meaning. Fuyama was the head of the church, who misrepresented his religion by acting like the thing he was aiming to destroy, making him a really fucking well-written villain in my opinion. And yet, ironically, Toma, an atheist, is the one who acts more like the Messiah himself in this situation by pardoning Fuyama and saving his life. Love thy neighbour, even if they started World War III. I told you all Toma is the second coming of Jesus, but yeah, the message this also presents is that you don't need a religion to be a moral person, as ultimately, the one responsible for your actions is not a holy book, but yourself, and I think that is the key theme. To add more religious connotations into the mix, Fuyama doesn't get away without punishment, as Alistair, the B666, severs his arm and nearly kills him, implying Fuyama was judged by the devil for his actions. Poetic. And Toma is not the only atheist in the story who has religious connotations, as Accelerator, also seeking redemption and atonement for his sins of mass murdering clones, leads him to take the form of an angel, suggesting that Accelerator is no longer consumed by hatred and is not the monster he used to be. Again, another example of you not needing to follow a religion or ideology, just do what works for you to become a better person. While Index is undoubtedly critical of religion, it's by no means labelling it as an outright bad thing. I believe it's presented in a tasteful and nuanced way that shows you both the good and bad aspects. And that's a common theme with Index as a whole. It presents complex moral dilemmas where the correct answer to problems isn't always obvious. This makes it more realistic and engaging, which is why I love this series so much. I know the other religions play a role in Index, but the main focus is Christianity, at least for the first light novel series, and I felt there was more I could talk about with this as opposed to Norse mythology or Buddhism, for example. Anyway, if you found this video interesting and would like to see more similar content, both about and not about Index, click on these videos on screen right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.